Hey everybody, what's up everyone? Welcome to Ace Talks, guys. Welcome this week to another Ace Talks. We're going to be talking to someone in a quite advanced field, and we're going to be talking to someone who is an industrial designer. And all of y'all out there who have questions on industrial design, maybe even product design, and all these different questions, do keep them ready. We're going to be speaking to him in this Ace Talks. Let's invite Sushant Vohra, an industrial designer. He's now based in Mumbai, so I'll just get him on over here. Just waiting for him. I hope all of y'all can hear us today. Hi Sushant.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, it's all good. How are you?
Good, thank you. Nice to see you and nice to finally meet you. Thanks for getting me on board.
Yeah, definitely. I love. Actually, I went through your profile. One of my associates shared it with me, and I really was impressed, like, by all your content. Like, it was really amazing. And also, I have a lot of friends. Like, I'm an architect, right? So I have a lot of friends who have gotten into product design and into even industrial design. And I really was always impressed, like, by product designers in general because of the intricacy that they bring into a product. And before I think we go ahead, why don't you introduce yourself? What do you do exactly, and all of that?
Sure, yeah, thank you. So I am Sushant Vohra. I was born in the north of India in Jammu and Kashmir, and ever since then I've been in different parts of India. I studied in Dehradun. I did my college in Pune. Then I lived a little bit in Hong Kong and in Europe, and then more recently in California in the States. So yeah, I studied industrial design, 5 years of industrial design at ISD in Pune. It's a French institute, or rather it's an institute. It's an Indian counterpart of a French institute. Yeah, we had multiple courses like transportation design, animation, and things like that. I was pretty keen on making things that actually, when I was a kid, I was more keen on like just making cool stuff. I just thought like products should look cool and I should just make things look cool. But when you study design, you realize that it's not just about making cool things. It goes beyond that. It goes to solving problems, helping humanity, and just working with humans, psychology, and things like that. So yeah, 5 years of my study involved a couple of internships. My first one was in Hong Kong. I went to Steelcase, which is the biggest office furniture manufacturing company in the world. There are multiple offices around, and pretty huge experience right off the bat. Just to be dropped down into one of the biggest companies, pretty heavy on design. Then after that, final year, I was in Austria. I was working for a company called, or a studio called Kiska. Kiska does a lot of like automobile. Kiska Design does a lot of automobile stuff, which extends from the future of transportation to just straightforward. How do we make a bike next year, or how do we come up with a new version of a bike? So they were like, I was in the product department, but obviously with the company's profile being very heavily automobile geared, I also got to work on a lot of automobile stuff. So for those of you who don't know Kiska, they do all the KTM bikes that are here in India. They do all the Husqvarna bikes. They do a lot of stuff for Audi and Volkswagen. So if you get a chance, check them out. And then right after I graduated, I was already doing some freelance stuff because you pick up skills. You already want to exercise those skills as an industrial designer. I got an opportunity to work for me at least, it was a dream studio. I went to Astro Studios in California. They are most well known for designing or being a very big design force in bringing the Microsoft Xbox 360 to life. So that's how a lot of people know them. They do a lot of stuff for Nike.
And what did you say? What the firm's name? Sorry, what did you say? What the firm's name again?
It's called Astro Studios. Astro as an astronaut, but Astro Studios. They're based in San Francisco. I think they've been around for more than 25 years. But yeah, they've been pretty small, but yeah, very, I guess like very respectable in the SF design community. So yeah, they do a lot of stuff from, all big brands because they're based in California, but also since they're close to Silicon Valley, they do a lot of stuff for younger startups, who just got funding and have crazy ideas that they want to execute. Yeah, and then I've been back home before the pandemic. I'm going to be here for a while, doing a lot of freelance stuff, as well as starting to build some of my own personal projects into full-fledged, not just designs but products and solutions, as you would call it. Yeah, that's pretty much where I am.
I mean, wow. First of all, you've worked like all over. You've worked with really, really awesome companies as well. So I guess what would you say to? Okay, so I have this this question which I get a lot. That what is the difference between product design and industrial design? And like I just would like you to tell people what exactly does an industrial designer do and what exactly does a product designer do.
I think product design before websites and apps came in was industrial design, and then the guys who design apps plus experiences, they sort of took the title away from us and just started calling themselves product designer. So, but in today's world, what is more relevant is product design in a lot of, I guess, 80% of the times is referred to as app design, or let's just say digital product design. So it's just the shortened version of digital product design. When you talk about industrial design, it's almost always has a hardware piece involved to it. So that means, anything from a simple pencil to an aircraft, it all comes under industrial design. Some might say that transportation design is a separate field. At least for me, transportation design also falls under industrial design. Anything that has hardware is industrial design. So anything from furniture to even parts of exhibition design. I get the fact that exhibition design goes at a broader spatial level, but the actual design of the elements inside comes under industrial design. So yeah, hardware, industrial design, product design in today's world is mostly digital. Some companies are still a little bit old fashioned. They might call it product. They might refer to product as hardware design as well. So yeah, it's a little confusing. I totally agree. Yeah, I don't know. The product designer just came in and swooped that name from us.
So you're saying everything was industrial design and then product design was a field like which was created.
I think for simplicity's sake, everything was product design before. So when you said product, you sort of already meant like hardware. I mean, products were supposed to be tangible products. And then when the whole revolution came in with digital media and apps and the cell phone plus websites, everything. So website design plus app design, all of that will be now referred to as digital product design.
Even like just the conceptualizing stage could be called like product design, and then when you take it to mass, like the mass market, you could call that stage as like industrial design, from actually the idea to execution and then getting it to people in their hands.
Yeah, I wouldn't distinguish it that ways. I think for sake of simplicity, everything falls under design, right? So what you're saying falls under any design process. Now, what you apply the design process to really gives it the name. If you want to apply it to an app or a website, it's digital product design. If you want to apply it to a piece of furniture or a hardware, it's industrial design. If you want to apply it to a car, it's transportation design. So, I mean, it's just for sake of simplicity in the industry, how do you put out job openings? How do you teach courses? And how do you define like these different fields? But yeah, ultimately, as an industrial designer, it's not impossible to work on an app or work on a car, for example. Similarly, for an architect, it's not that important to justify that he's only going to work on buildings or spaces. Probably can go beyond that, right?
I would like to know what are you currently working on? Like, what are those projects? Like, I've seen your Instagram page with like different headphones, the light stick as well, and a lot of different things, which were like really, I think it looked futuristic. Is that like something you go for? Is that like your like style of designing?
Yeah, I think for me, one of the biggest inspirations is, or not inspirations, but one of the biggest motivations is to break away from today's standards of, aesthetics and today's established trends, as most people call it. So yeah, some of the things might look futuristic, some of the things might look odd at first sight, but I think that's what I'm trying to do. So Instagram for me is not really like I can't put, obviously with any designer, any professional, they can't put a lot of like their professional work online because of, confidentiality and a lot of different clauses that sort of bind you to not exposing the process and things like that. So for me, Instagram is a playground. I do a lot of concept work. I do a lot of, obviously, as you might have seen, some renderings, basically just 3D images to test out how it is. How if people like it, don't like it. I mean, again, I understand that likes and comments are not the way to evaluate if my design works.
But you get an idea.
Yeah, you sort of get some sort of feedback, which is great. And building a community over time has already helped me a lot. A lot of designers see my, and the way we are connecting as well, it's only because you've seen some of my work. So I think that's one of the reasons why I keep doing it.
Definitely. No, I saw your work and I was like, wow, like, can you tell us something about your design process, the way you think when you get an idea? What is the kind of process that you start and how do you approach your design?
Right. So before that, let me just break down what industrial design process generally involves, and then I can probably talk about how I sort of address that. The way we've been taught in schools is that design, you sort of have to come up with your own process to solve a problem. But the definition of design says, like solutions for problems that exist in the world. So basically, a designer's job is to come up with ideas and solve these problems, right? So generally, in the most simplistic terms, we get paid to think, right? We get paid to come up with ideas. Same with, I mean, it extends beyond that. We can talk about execution of these ideas and so on. But the biggest asset we have is our brain, the way we think, the way we solve problems. That's literally the only reason somebody's going to hire me than somebody who can do 3D models and renders, because of course you can do that, but can you think as well? So yeah, in terms of design education, I was pretty lucky enough to have a broad view of design. So we have a lot of professors, had a lot of professors from around the world. I also sort of understood how culture affects design. Again, I'm not going to go too much in depth with that right now, maybe later on, but having multiple brains just telling you that you should try this, you should try that, if this doesn't work, you should try this, I think this, I think that, things like this sort of develop a framework in your brain. You sort of develop a system in your brain, like you sort of understand which feedback to take, which feedback to not take. So in terms of design process, it's pretty similar to, I would imagine, architecture and a lot of other design processes. You start with the problem, sort of break it down into what you want to do, what is your intention, if there is a user in mind or a group of people in mind who you want to solve the problem for. Do some research. Again, there are research fields as well, design research, that go in depth with the research. But yeah, once you have some sort of insights or some material to work on, like if you really figured out, okay, this has to be solved, and next step is to really just go out and come up with ideas. For ideas, we use sketches, we use a lot of like quick thumbnail doodles on like post-it notes and sticky notes and things like that. Pushing that further, sketching is sort of our language to communicate quick ideas. On Instagram, you probably even see sketches that are not just quick ideas. People spend time perfecting those sketches. Those are also completely viable because you can put them in front of the client, get some sort of reaction. Again, if it's not a client, then your teacher or your professor or your friends, then get some sort of reaction from that. And then the next step is to really imagine that in the real world. So again, if that is through prototyping, which is, working with cardboard, foam, even 3D printing. So 3D printing involves you to make some 3D models and then go into 3D printing. Again, there are multiple ways where you can bring that 2D or whatever is in your head, those sort of ideas, into the real world. Some of the design processes maybe do not go to the real world because the problem might involve some concept solution. The solution might not be something that you can realize in today's times, right? So you basically end the project at like a 3D rendering or some sort of visual cue that, hey, this is the solution.
And you are happy with it, but you're like, I don't think I can show it to anyone.
Yeah, exactly. So again, there's multiple reasons like why you wouldn't want to go to the real world. But the end goal for any designer is to have things in the world that people can use and then ultimately give you feedback. And I think that's the biggest satisfaction for any designer. So this whole thing is sort of like a loop as well. You think more and you go back to the research, you think more, you go back to the research. Sometimes you go forward, make a real thing, test it out, it doesn't work, then think again, things like this. So my I think I follow mostly the same principle. The only added bit of salt or sugar is that I try and stay away from what is existing today in terms of trends and in terms of the established concepts today. I always break down a brief to its core essentials. If somebody asks me, let's design a new coffee machine, I wouldn't just start with an existing coffee machine. I'll probably go back and see what is the end goal. We want to make a fresh hot cup of coffee, right? How can we do that? And then start from there, because then the machine is not in the picture, but the idea of what is the intention of the brief is already there. So that's just one added benefit that I always.
Very good way to put it.
Yeah, I always sort of like start abstract and as sort of like a funnel, just go upwards and like narrow down to what might be the best solution for the intended brief and the intended outcome of the project.
Right. Do you believe, because you said so many times that you want people to kind of understand and give you response back on every stage, right? Do you think like that's something which is important to an industrial designer before it reaches the actual market?
Yeah, I think for a real world project, it is crucial to get feedback from people. And I don't mean get feedback on unfinished stuff like just half-assed ideas. You shouldn't go out there when you haven't resolved things in your head completely and you just go there, hey, what do you think about this? I think you should go out there as soon as you're ready with like one concept, or again, the definition of concept is kind of loose, but any core idea that is realizable and that people can, people can use and understand if it works or not. I think that's basically a concept. So you send it out to them. If it works, you get the feedback. If it works, then great, move ahead, solve other things, make it look cool, and so on. If it doesn't work, you don't lose a lot, right? You don't finish the project and then you have to go back. It's just the part of the process. So yeah, for a real world client project, super important. For personal projects, again, it comes down to what your intention is. If your intention is to, like if you want to make something really cool that might not be producible today or manufacturable today, then yeah, go for that. You probably shouldn't care about what people think and make something really cool. But if it's if it's a problem you're solving, I think the best bet is to get feedback from people when it's ready and when you're able to show how it works and what it does.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you can show something, it should definitely work. And also, getting feedback does not make you like. A lot of times, it's better that you get feedback because you want like a lot of people to use it in the end of the day. So if you get like the more feedback you get, you're going to just improve the product definitely. Yeah, but what are the other softwares, including modeling and rendering, do you use personally, and what do you think is like industry level standard also?
Yeah, so I think for most of my life, I've been really grateful to understand Photoshop and Illustrator really quickly. So all of Adobe softwares, including the 2D softwares like Photoshop and vector software like Illustrator, super important. I think it's a given that any designer should know these softwares. Then in terms of 3D, we have Rhino. Like you said, Rhino also, I mean, again, I know you guys use a lot of Grasshopper. It's not a given for sure, like you have to know Grasshopper. It's added knowledge if it helps, because when we look at textures and if you want to optimize something, of course Grasshopper comes into play. SolidWorks is super important. I mean, I would also go ahead and call it the industry standard. Like Rhino and SolidWorks are the two most used softwares in industrial design. Lately, I've also seen, or by lately I mean the past couple of years, I've also seen Fusion 360 come up a lot.
Okay.
I personally haven't tried it, but in terms of industry, I know that maybe like 20% of the people have already adopted to Fusion 360. But yeah, Rhino and SolidWorks have been the backbone of the ID community for so long. And it's just really hard to take away that from, like if you have a studio of 20 people, one guy shows up with Fusion 360, you're most likely just going to say that, hey, can you learn Rhino? Because we can all work together. But yeah, apparently it feels like all these softwares have some, like transferable skills. So if you learn one part of it and if you learn the core concept of a software, it's easy to shift to another. So yeah, just to wrap up, all Adobe softwares are super cool. Even the video making ones like Premiere Pro and After Effects are really nice. For 3D, SolidWorks and Rhino and Fusion 360 is coming up. And for rendering, we use Keyshot. So ID guys are heavy on a software called Keyshot. But I do know that some people who want to go beyond that are doing Blender, they're doing V-Ray, they're doing Corona render, Octane rendering, Cinema 4D, things like that. So again, that falls into a little bit more of CGI territory. And I don't say CGI in terms of like movie CGI VFX. I say that in terms of digital design, which is, high quality renderings of cars and high quality renderings of any products that you want to put out there. So yeah, for rendering, again, Keyshot is our sort of the go-to, but moving forward, Blender, Cinema 4Ds, its host render plus Octane, V-Ray, Corona render, Arnold render. There's many. So again, if you're into the rendering world, I think it's a matter of just like picking up one and just maxing out whatever you can do from that. But yeah, that's all. I mean, that's pretty much all I can think of. I mean, ZBrush I haven't seen anybody use, but for soft goods, people who do sometimes shoes and bags, I've seen them use ZBrush. But again, ZBrush is a sculpting tool, so it's not going to help you design, but it's going to help you visualize your products. So yeah,
is it going to be something like do you use Maya by any chance?
But
it's not. I know it's not directly. It's more for animation and stuff like that. But are you like, have you used it, or is it something which could be used for whatever kind of a futuristic thing or something?
Yeah, for sure. So both Maya and Max, I've seen traces of Maya and Max being used for industrial design. I wouldn't say like it's the industrial standard, but I did definitely see a lot of people using it, especially on Instagram as well. People can create. I mean, basically, our talk is sort of like get to a point where we can say that, if you have the knowledge, you can use any software to get to where you want. Right.
I think that's like one of the most important things that everyone should understand, because so we teach softwares and then most of them like collide because they're like 3D softwares, they're like 2D softwares, and everyone just has to find what they really want to use and work along with. Of course, there are certain things which give you better results, but if you use even a basic software to its fullest extent with all the plugins and everything, you just know like crazy amount of it. You'll be able to create amazing things in that also. If it's just for visualization, I'm not talking about like BIM and stuff like that. Like that's something for architecture. But if it's just about visualization, you can always use even basic softwares and use like every single thing possible in it and get like really good renders, visualizing of it, basically. But yeah, completely true. So when you work in like as an industrial designer, are you planning to right now start like maybe your own firm out here in Bombay, or like anytime to go back, or what's it like?
Yeah, that'll be sort of the end goal. That'll be like the dream. I would say that yes, I am planning, because I'm always planning for like what I want to do with design. But if it's going to happen in the next couple of years, maybe not. I still feel that, design is not just about, you do 10 projects and you're a great designer, ins and outs of design. I don't think that's how it works. You sort of have to not only gain experience with projects and different products, but also people, right? Like I said early on, culture has a massive impact on design. I'm sure you'd realize like working with people from different parts of the country itself gives you, different results, and you learn new every time. Every time you learn something new. So imagine extending that to the whole world. So when you work with, Americans versus Europeans, it's always different the way you think about things. So for me, an ideal situation would be to gain that experience of working with more people. I don't necessarily say projects, because some projects just go on for like 2 years. It's fine with me. I mean, some processes demand that, but for me, working with people is important. So probably for the next 2 to 3 years, I'll probably work. And once I feel confident of building a team, understanding what goes into leadership, managing, administration, things like that, then it probably makes sense for me to think about a studio. But yeah, as a independent designer, somebody would also call me a studio, because like you can do a lot of things from like initial parts of design to rendering and so on. You basically deliver the whole package.
So you are basically freelancing out here.
Yeah, yeah, I would. Yeah, also the word freelancing sort of gives a weird vibe sometimes. It's like
No,
it's
you're running a studio. Sorry, you're running a studio.
no. I get. I mean, technically, yeah, for sure. If you anybody would call this freelance, I sort of also refer to this as being an independent consultant, which is not to say that oh, it's a fancy word. You use consultant and independent. It's gonna make you look cool. It's more like that's what I am. I can be put in any situation to be a part of a team, to design something solely by myself, to do a small part in the process. Again, I'm just an independent designer. You can put me anywhere in the whole process, or give me the
I
whole
mean,
process.
that's a very good, like a very good approach also to how did you, like, no, why I asked you this question was because a lot of people, not just, this is a very common thing. You call yourself freelancer, you call yourself what, and how do you think and what goes behind calling yourself that, right? A lot of people want to know what they should be calling themselves also while they are just freelancers. Should they call themselves freelancers because then they're just taking works. They're not going to enter into a team. But as you said, like an independent consultant, you can enter into a team, you can work alongside, you can work on your own. Gives you the freedom for that as well, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's perfect. Now,
Just to add to that, I've been also a pretty big advocate on students calling themselves students even when they're in like fifth years. Please don't do that, because as soon as you understand design, you're a designer, right? Like if you go out to someone, maybe you're in third year, but you're still a designer. You don't go out and say that I'm a student, I'm willing to help you out, or I'm willing to work for free. I mean, that's a separate topic, I understand, but like it sort of, like I said, design is more of a cultural thing. It's a way of processing your brain and like thinking through ideas. So as soon as you feel you're ready to be a designer, you're ready to fit in any part of the process, you are a designer. I mean, there's no but you, again, like design is one of those fields where you don't need a certificate to justify how good of a designer you are. Our marks don't make a lot of sense.
As an industrial designer, you what are the career paths after industrial designer? Like what are the, you can say, like your where can your expertise into different fields, or is there something more that you can study after being an industrial designer to specialize in certain fields?
Yeah, so in terms of studies, one can do a master. So I did a 4 years or a 5 year integrated master's course, which is like 3.5 years of foundation studies and then 1.5 years of master's. But again, a more structured program would probably have like 4 years of bachelor's degree in your hands and then 2 years of master degree in your hands. What we had was more of a diploma thingy, which again, very it's recognized, but you sort of have to convince people that you did 5 years of studies and yes, you have the portfolio and things like that. But yeah, so if you want to do further studies from bachelor's, there is master's. You can also do a PhD in design. So once you figure that out, you visit the campus, and most of the colleges now also have interviews, which is a great way of figuring out. But yeah, so right after 12th, you will have this whole world of colleges open to you, offering you bachelor courses. I think it is an important choice. One of the most important choices where you do your bachelor's. I still would say that your first couple of years is basically what will define your progression in the next 5 to 6 years. If they're not spent in the most efficient manner, it is no doubt you're going to struggle from third year onwards, where you're required to make a portfolio, where you're required to get an internship, and so on. So I would say pick a college that has a lot of reputation behind, and the reputation not just because it's written in the books or it's in top 100 website, but because somebody or somebody you have spoken to has had a great experience in the college and results to show that. Yeah. So after that, you have masters. Some colleges offer masters in their own program as well. For example, if you are an industrial designer, I think NID offers a masters. There are some IITs, couple of IITs that are now offering masters in design. I don't know yet if if bachelors in design exists in IIT, but I think if not already, it is already planned. I mean, that much I know. So yeah, you can do bachelor's, master's, doctorate if you want to. But the most important way to progress your career is to do internships early on. So since we're talking about career, let me just talk about those things. Internships are super important to understand how the world works. We often complain that there's a disconnect between the colleges and the academics and the real world, right? Which is kind of true, but again, it's not a excuse for you to not go past that. Internships exist for a reason. Students can get some experience. They get to work on projects, real world projects. Same with like if it's a, I mean, most of the times it's going to be a paid internship. Again, I it's inevitable that I bring that topic in. A lot of people, a lot of students don't know that internships are supposed to be paid, but a lot of times they are paid. You get the experience, you work for 3 months or 6 months, whatever your deal is, you come back, you use that experience in your college, progress further, do another internship, and then look for a job. Because then now when you look for a job, you know how the world works, or at least have a good idea that if I'm getting into the market right now, I know for the past 1 year that I've done something in the real world that I can utilize now. So you have that confidence. In terms of career paths, you can join studios, design consultancies, basically, which are nothing but companies that work for other companies, right? These are a bunch of designers, a team of designers, could be a mixed team as well, not just industrial designers, could be transportation designers, UI, UX designers, even architects to an extent, and maybe even like business people. So these guys help other companies design their solutions.
When you create designs, right? Was there ever an idea that you would? So this is just something which I don't know. Is it just about product designers doing this, or is it like even industrial designers can like do it anyway? They create designs and prototypes, and then they get it patented and they license it to big companies for mass market. And I think there are businesses that just run doing that all the time, getting licensing deals and not really getting into the entire production area of it, just letting a big like a big company take over it and eat the royalties from it. Like, is that a good way to look like do it as well after you graduate, maybe?
I wouldn't say right after you graduate. I think it still needs a little, unless you have stumbled upon something that's really groundbreaking. In that case, for sure, do anything that helps you protect your design. But generally speaking, like right after you graduate, having knowledge of copyrights, patents is super important. Just so that you don't breach them, so that you understand how to protect your own designs and understand how to differentiate yourselves enough to be called an original piece. A lot of times in the industry, what happens is everything is based off of something that exists, right? So there are influences from competitors. If you want to design, let's say, a headphone or a hard drive, you have other competitors you look at and sometimes end up in that territory where it's difficult to differentiate which product, at least visually, to go for. So it's important to understand definitely the differences between originality, utility, patents, utility, and design, and everything from the legal standpoint.
What is your journey of design till now? So I guess if you could just answer that, it would be awesome.
Yeah, for me, I think for the first couple of years in my design journey, which was design school in Pune, I was super lazy. I wasn't, I mean, again, like I said, I just wanted to make cool things, and I was kind of bored with the idea that we have to think about the planet and the world and humans and all that. I was like, whoa, can I just make something all black and matte black and this is going to look cool? But yeah, so I was more like amazed to figure out, or I mean, firstly, it was a challenge for me to wrap my head around how big the world of design is. When we talk about design, product design, it's not just limited to the actual look and feel of the product and the colors that go on a product. It goes beyond that, the way it has an emotional impact on someone. And once I started wrapping my heads around that, I think the journey was fairly easier, because I understood that, whenever I design, it's not just like making a 3D model and putting a color on it. It has to have some emotion, it has to have some thought into it. And that thought needs to resonate with your end audience. And yeah, in terms of journey, living in Hong Kong was great. You work so closely with the Chinese manufacturers. You visit the factories, you see the processes firsthand and understand what is possible and what is not possible. Also, in terms of what is not possible, you also get to interact with engineers to figure out what can you do to make things possible, right? A lot of the things that I see on Instagram, they're never going to be made because they potentially can't be made at this point in this time. So but yeah, like I said, Instagram is a playground, so good for those guys. But having real experiences like that really helps put things into perspective. Then moving to Austria, it was more of like a lot of concept work, a lot of like, because again, we're talking about cars and automobiles. So there's sometimes when you do high end vehicles, there's very few limitations. It's more like how cool can you make it, right? So then you just go nuts and you make the coolest forms and shapes ever, come up with new processes to make that. Yeah, I mean, for personal projects, I think it really, for me, it's more like I can push it as much as I want. Again, if somebody comes up to me and says that, hey, like this is going to be really difficult to make, like I know, I mean, that's not the
But
end
do you
goal.
think about the engineering aspect? There's actually a question also. Do you think about like the engineering aspect, where the joints should go, where all of
Yeah,
that stuff?
yeah. Recently, so or past couple of years, I've been doing that a lot. I feel design definitely should embody parts of engineering. Again, I'm not an engineer to say that yes, my solutions are perfectly producible today. It definitely is a collaboration between engineers and designers to come up with a real world product. But for me, again, utilizing my experience and knowledge in engineering or from whatever interactions I've had, I can get it to a point where I'll at least we have able to have a conversation with an engineer and figure out what needs to be done to make this producible. Again, manufacturing is a whole another field. You study for 4 years. So if you want to do mechanical design and manufacturing, product development and things like that, that's another 4 years of studies. Like I don't think I'd have that knowledge, obviously. But as close as designers can get to that knowledge, which is do your own research, look online, work and talk with engineers, you're going to be in much better shape to have a conversation about real world products and how they're made. Yeah,
Very
just to
true.
wrap up my journey as well, then from Austria, I moved to the US, which was a very heavy design market. Everybody loves cool new designs, minimal designs, whatever you throw at them, they'll love any of it. In India, it's the opposite, right? The first question is like, how expensive is it? Right? Do I
Very true.
really need to buy this? Can I just fix my old one? Can I do some jugaad and get my old one to work the same way? Jugaad mentality still exists very widely, and budget still heavily drives your decisions. So in the
Very
US, it
true.
was the opposite. I was given complete freedom to do whatever I wanted. Big companies would come in, big budgets, and products were just really cool. So I had a blast over there as well. A different work environment because Americans working with Chinese manufacturers or working with somebody in South Korea to make a prototype and things like that. It's interesting to have those conversations. And like I said, for me, valuing these exchanges is what matters to me. So it was a blast. Now coming back, sort of had a lot of time to think about all these experiences and how I can further utilize these thoughts. So yeah, that's where I am.
Wow. I mean, what do you think would be your five like pointers for anyone who wants to select this profession, like industrial design or even product design? Just like, okay, I don't know, like what do you want to talk about? Industrial design
Yeah.
or product design? 5 points.
Okay, so number one would definitely be that don't think of design as a field of study. It's a mindset. It's a lifestyle. Basically, it's a way you think. I think once you fall into the world of design, it's hard to just turn off. You're always looking at things and judging them, or sort of using logic to justify why this exists, or questioning things, observing things like that. So yeah, so one would be design is a mindset. You have to keep that in mind. Second would be to be completely open-minded. Somebody who's not a designer can potentially teach you a lot, or somebody who's a great designer can be an absolute nightmare to work with, right? So be open-minded, learn from yeah, learn from anything and everyone that's around you. Number three, uh, design some things. I mean, again, like I don't know how to put it, but have empathy for people. There might be things that you don't resonate with, especially when people work on medical products. It's hard for somebody to be in the situation of a doctor or a patient and figure out what they need to do to make a bronchoscope or like some sort of like medical device. So you have to have empathy. Empathy is super important. Ask them, be in their shoes, spend a week with them, a day with them, ask them as many questions as they can. Have empathy. The other 2 points are sort of similar, but one of the most important points is to put yourself out there. We have already discussed this, right? You have to put yourself out there. Don't be afraid to be criticized and judged. You will make mistakes, or if not mistakes, you will be called out. You'll be judged on whatever you put out. Just like musicians, right? Like so many musicians try years and years and years. You have to put yourself out there. And one point stemming off of that is make connections, right? The more you put yourself out there, try and build relationships. It's not about you all the time. It's not about, hey, this is my design, please give me feedback, or hey, this is my design, please hire me. Think about it the other way around, which is, what did you design? Can I talk to you about this? Do I have questions about your design? If you're speaking to a client, ask them what their problems are. It's not so much of like, hey, I'm going to solve all the problems, I'm the hero here. It's more like, hey, what's up? You ask the other person what their problems are and why they aren't a hero yet, or what's troubling them. So it goes, even in a student-teacher relationship, it has to be an exchange. I don't think it has to be give me all the information you have, I'm going to take all the information. So yeah, so last point is definitely build connections and long-lasting connections, and of course don't fake them. Don't like I'm saying, it's a lot of people, what they do is like they have conversations because they want something in return. They speak to you nicely and then they'll be like, hey, check out my portfolio. I mean, that's just
like
okay. I
generally
get,
go and speak to them.
yeah, I mean, I get that, but not really. I mean, there's better ways to, again, I think just to wrap all of this up, what has worked for me is definitely all these points. And more than that, there's this mentality that, you know, if you're bad at networking, if you're bad at connecting with people, make sure your work is so good that you probably don't need to connect with people, or other people want to connect with you. Then it just makes it easier for you to you know, engage in a conversation. If it's hard for you to go out there and say that, hey, I'm a student, I just want to learn from you, I just want to stay connected. If it's hard for you to say that, then make sure your work is up to that level that somebody else comes to you and say that, hey, I like your work, I want to stay connected. Then it's probably easier, right? You can say yes or no.
But before I wrap up, this is something which I really want to ask you is, what has been the one experience which, you know, has been something which you learned from the most, the one experience that taught you the most in the last couple of years of you being a designer?
Yeah, I always tell the same story. It's one experience that like really truly shifted my gears completely. This was in third year. I just finished my design studies and I was making my portfolio. And I was so proud of my sketching and 3D skills. And I was like, bro, I can sketch for days and I can like render and make Photoshop, and like people are gonna get so impressed. And then I started looking for internships, and it was very hard to find an internship in the first place. But somehow this Steelcase thing happened. The creative director replied. We had an interview, still got me on board, flew me to Hong Kong. I remember in my, I think it was like first week or second week, I was like super confident. I had to design like some parts of a chair, and I was like, bro, chair's damn easy. I can sketch everything in perspective and nicely color them. And I was fully detailing pages after pages, making Photoshop renderings and things like that. And I remember it was like a month into my internship. I hadn't had any, let's say, a real meeting as such with the creative director. I was just like taking everything for granted. I was like, bro, this is damn easy. Bro, this internship is like a cruise, right? I'm just sketching and having fun. I'm going to show these sketches, get something approved, and then they're going to make it. So I go out there with like this huge couple of boards, like these big mount boards with like, I would imagine like around 50 sketches just pinned all over. Beautiful sketches. Again, like I'll still look at them and be like, great sketches for sure, like definitely. And so my boss is there, and my boss's boss is there, and there's like 4 other people, and I'm 20 years old at this point. Like I haven't even turned 21. So I'm 20 years old. I go out there. This is in 2015, by the way, explaining each sketch one by one in detail. Oh, this line can go there, and this can do that, and this can move. Or I'm just explaining these sketches one by one. And in the middle, the creative director, my boss's boss, he stops. He's like, hey, Sushant, can you stop for a second? How do you know this works? And then in my head, I'm like, oh, wait, I didn't explain it properly. Let me start all over again. Let me just go for the first sketch, second sketch, so on. So I start doing it. It's like, no, Sushant, no. It's a chair that we are making, right? And all I see is sketches here. Your job is to design something, right? To solve a solution. A chair, people are supposed to sit on a chair. I can't sit on your sketch and figure out if it works or not. And that moment, I was like so disappointed. I was like, what is he saying? Look at these 50 sketches that I did. There's so many sketches on board. What else does he want? I was so disappointed. So then later in the evening, my immediate colleague, let's say, or I was mentoring under him, he came and said, "Hey, Sushant, I know it was rough for you. It was really hard. I know you put in a lot of work. But I was wondering what your thoughts are on what the feedback was." I was like, "This is hilarious. I did 50 pages of sketches and so on. I went on to explain how I did so much work and thing." So creative director comes in, "Hey, I see great sketches, obviously, but that's not what we're here to talk about. Why don't you build a chair?" So I'm a 20-year-old guy in Hong Kong who doesn't speak Cantonese or Mandarin, and I've been thrown into a situation where I have to build a chair. Right? I haven't even figured out my living situation yet. My landlord has just kicked me, or not kicked me out, but he's like, "Oh, we've got to shift you for a week or something." I'm having other troubles at home. First time out of the country as well. And this guy says, "Yo, you know what? You build a chair." And it's like a team of 3 people. The other 3 are obviously super busy because they don't have time for a 20-year-old kid from India. And I'm like, holy shit, I have to build a chair now. I'm in the middle of nowhere, or I mean, definitely in the middle of somewhere, but I don't know this place. And he's like, you can use our factories in China. You can figure that stuff out." I'm like, "What factories? What China? Wait a minute." So been put into that situation where he's like, "Build a chair from," and absolutely just no information, just figure out your solutions. I think starting from that point to the next 5 months were like definitely the most challenging period for me. Everything from communicating in people who only speak
But you
Mandarin.
learned a lot. Like you must have learned as much as you never learned before in just those 5 months.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I feel like that was definitely the biggest challenge, but I needed it. I needed a kick on my ass to just tell me, don't do sketches for the sake of doing sketches. Do design like real
Very
design.
true. Very true. Very true. Lovely. That's actually one of the best experiences I think I've heard. And a very fancy one. Like go just use our factories in China.
It's like I don't
But
even know
amazing.
how to I don't even know how to use the metros and how to get into China in the first place. Because first time in the country, you're talking about like visas and things like that. So we have a team for that. You figure that out. It was like,
Looking at the current situation of design education in India, especially automobile, what are the few sources to learn, gain knowledge and experience? And
um,
do you have any sketching tips or ways to improve sketches?
what you can do today to with the current situation is definitely do more projects, more personal work. Put your projects out there, get more eyes on your work, whether that is putting your projects on Behance or your own website or Instagram, anything that you want. Try and get more eyes on it. Try and also reach out to blogs and websites that encourage the kind of projects that you're doing. And if you can get on any of those, you'll definitely get more eyes on your work. More eyes means more feedback. More feedback means just generally self improvement, right? I mean, or at least I hope there is some sort of augmentation from that. If not that, or maybe alongside that, you can look for mentorship. A lot of people are at their homes at this time, all around the world. If there are some hero designers in your mind, reach out to them, tell them that, "Hey, I want to do a project, and can I reach out to you for feedback every time I hit a checkpoint? Let's do this mentorship program for like 2 months." I don't know if everybody will agree to you, but if you reach out to like 10 people, I'm sure even if they can't be your mentor, they'll at least be connected to you and watch your progress. So reach out to people at this time. This is the best time to reach out to people. And yeah, do a lot of projects. Again, I don't want to talk about the job market right now. It's horrible. Everybody knows that. Some freelancers are lucky because big companies don't want to spend a lot of money on big studios. So if you're already in the freelance game, I hope it's going okay for you, because at least from my friends, I can figure out at least this much, that more projects are coming during this time because big companies don't have the budget for like larger studios. So, or again, if you want to get into freelance, just make sure you have connections, because you don't want to be in this situation where the job market is dead, you're freelancing and you don't have any clients, right? You're sort of then stuck. So again, no matter what situation you're in, you sort of have to push out more work and make more connections. And the other one was about sketching tips, right? So like I said before, you know, it's sketching also is just a tool that you can master by practicing. I think practice goes a long way for sure, but I mean, you guys know that. I think another tip I give to a lot of people is try and copy other people's style. Like if you see people who are doing sketches in their own style and they have a recognized style, copy that. Obviously, personally, like don't copy and put it out there. Don't do that. But like practice that style. Practice styles from like 10 different people, 20 different people, and so on. Eventually, you will figure out where is your core style, or like which one do you resonate with the most. So sketching goes in two steps, right? One is like how good you can sketch, which is, you know, like your line quality and perspective and like how beautiful your sketches are. And the other one is what is your style? How do you express yourself? How cool are your sketches, right? Try and mix both of those. Don't only focus on one of them. I know some people who are like really, they have their own style, but the sketches just don't make too much sense in terms of clarity and communication. So find that balance. But yeah, those would be my big tips for sketching and the job market.
Anyway, thank you so much for being for being here, Sushant, with us, and I hope we stay connected for doing a couple of more things in the future.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot for having me on board, and thanks to the viewers for hanging out with us. Take care.
Okay, guys, so that was Sushant Vohra. I hope you guys enjoyed this Case Talk session. The sessions are put up on IGTV as well as on our YouTube channel. So if you guys want to check it out, go check out our YouTube channel. We have crazy free resources over there as well. And it's awesome to see that we can bring so many different people from all different backgrounds here to give you guys knowledge and information and share their views and insights. We'll try to do more of them every single Tuesday. Till then, take care, and I'll see you guys in another Ace Talks. Bye-bye.